All right, I had a request to do a header for a website. So um, there's a lot of different headers that you can do. There's a lot of different styles, but for the most part, people these days are just going to create a header with a big line at the top. So I'm just going to, let's start this over, okay? Nope. Okay, I'm going to go to File, New, and when you go up to the presets, you can load in different web um, sizes here. Probably the one that I do the most is either 1280 or 1600, but let's just do 1280 for right now. Okay, 1280 by 1024. Okay, and the sizes don't matter as much as they used to because now everything's relative. When you're working with CSS and HTML and JavaScript, you're going to be working with sizes that are going to change. So you'll probably design for a few different sizes, okay? But this is just an overall look at, the style that I use. I do this over and over. Now, whenever I'm designing a header, unless somebody asks me for something different, you can do stuff like, there's the Apple header, the old Apple header that used to be, let's say, just gray. I'm just going to do this real quick so you can see what they are. I think it was gray. Okay, let's just do the real quick Apple header. I'm doing these all with shape. Okay, I want these all to be vectors so I can change them and they're not going to, get pixelated. So this would be like the Apple header. I do a lot of my editing down here in the FX. So you would start out by doing a gradient and then bring that down. I would do multiply the gradient on top, bring that down, and okay. Then you would have your Apple logo here. You would have your text boxes over here. If you're dealing with a shape and you grab the type tool and bring it on top, it's going to try and make that text fit into the shape. So I just ignore that. I hit shift and I don't do that very much. Okay. So if you want to put your links here, let's just go ahead and write them in. I've got Open Sans Light. That's kind of like the Apple font. It's not, I don't think that's what they actually use. I think they just use Helvetica. I could be wrong. So let's say 14. Let's see how this looks and make it white. All right, so home. Now, I'm going to space out the letters by just putting 10 spaces in between them, okay? And I'll show you a little bit more about how to do this in a second, but I'm just going to go home, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, store, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I'll just do contact. And we'll just make that all of our things. Now, when you've selected this text box, the text is going to be at the very top. So you probably just need to drag that down. And here we have our words. I'm going to zoom in, Control plus. Take a look at that. I'm hitting the space bar to move this around. Okay, now this looks very weak on top of this bar. And I have this set to sharp right now. Sharp means that there's just a little bit of smoothing going on, okay? Sharp, crisp, strong, smooth. The more further down you go here, the more this is going to blend the text into the background and make it look smooth. So one of the reasons that you would use this is to see what text is going to look like on top of a web design that's not where the text is not actually a graphic. The text is a font that's sitting on top of the web design, if that makes sense. So this looks a little small, so I'm going to make this 18. Starting to look a little bit better. I'm going to make this a little more bold. Let's see, semi-bold. That looks pretty good. And I might bring down the white a little bit on this just to, that's good. And the bold, I'm going to do regular. Okay, that looks a little better. I'm going to add a little space between these. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I'm going to put these over on this side. Just dragging the text box. Okay, now this isn't perfect. I'm going to move this down just a little bit. And now one of the things that Apple does is it has these little divots between its letters. So how do you create these divots? I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to make a line graphic. Okay, and this I'm going to make pixels. You can do lines, but I prefer using pixels only because it's what I've always done. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here. When you're designing, you're going to want to zoom in and zoom out and zoom in and zoom out to get the really nice details. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to hit Control plus, hit the space bar, get up to, okay, now I can see these guys, and I'm going to draw a white line from the top to the bottom here. Okay. So now we have a white line. In order to make this look like it's going in slightly, like there's a little teeny divot here, I'm going to copy this, drag it down, or you can just hit Control J, and I'm going to hit, after I do the select tool, I'm going to hit Control I, and that's going to inverse the color. Okay, I'm going to hit one arrow over, and now I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to hit Control Shift and click both of these, hit Control E to bring them together, move it over so it's kind of in the center here, and now I'm going to take down the opacity. So as you can see, the more I take down the opacity, the more it kind of looks like this is just separated by a little line that goes in slightly. Now if you do the opposite, it'll look like a line that's going out. So that looks more like a line that, well, it's still kind of look the same. One of the things that you'll be amazed at when you're working is how important it is to just eyeball everything, to look at things, and if it looks right, sometimes that's all you need. Okay, so I do divots like this sometimes, or I'm going to hit Alt, Control, drag that over. Another thing you can do is I will just cut this off a little bit, cut it off in the top and the bottom, and I'll do a blur that's called a motion blur, and that will just make it so this spreads out a little bit. Okay, and you'll see what that effect does. So filter, blur, motion blur, 0. No, that's good. No, it's too much. There we go. I just had way too much. And as you can see, that's blurring this so the outside starts blurring out. Okay. Motion blur is really the only other blur that I ever use. So let me see here. If I want to show you kind of what motion blur does here, here's a ball. Oops. New layer. Here's a ball. And let's do filter, motion blur. You can see that it looks like you took a picture of the ball moving quickly down. So you can use that for pictures and stuff where you want to make things look like they're moving forward or moving backwards or whatever. Okay, so this is a very subtle effect that I put on to all kinds of things. And it gives you that nice little feeling like there's a slight little divot there. And it's a very easy effect to make. Okay, so now I've got this shape. If you want to, you can go down to the FX and start adding little details to it. You can do, for example, a drop shadow. I try not to do drop shadows too much because they're kind of cheesy, but let's see. Oops, I'm putting a drop shadow on my divot. That's not going to do anything. Let's put a drop shadow on our rounded thing. Drop shadow. There we go. Actually, I don't like to do drop shadows because it makes the shadow go from one side to another. So the shadow will actually be going in this direction. If I'm doing a web design, what I'll try to do sometimes is just do an outer glow but I'll make it a dark outer glow. So here's the outer glow, and I'll change the color of the outer glow to black, and then the blending mode to multiply, and then bring that out a little bit, and that will give it a little more uniform outer glow or shadow. And you can do the same thing with drop shadow. It's just I'm accustomed to doing it this way. You can do a drop shadow and just set the distance to 0. And sometimes I'll add just a little stroke there. A lot of this is just details, and the things that make people really like your work are going to be the details. So I'll just put like a little stroke there, which will put a line around the edge, and I'll make the stroke a lighter color. So there we go. And this is something I don't do as much anymore because this style is kind of not, this isn't really a style that people are asking for anymore. But do you see that stroke? It gives you that nice little detail there. And it just separates things out. Another thing I used to do a lot is to add a little reflection on here. I mean, and that's the kind of thing that you would see on the old Apple stuff, and you don't really see it as much anymore. But I would do, let's say, for example, you want to make this look like it's shiny. You would just put a line on it. Let's say I want to give this kind of a reflection. I'm going to create a new layer and draw on top of it a circle. Now just bear with me for a second. I'm going to draw on this layer right above it a circle, and now I'm going to take that circle down to about 25%. Even like 10%. And then I'm going to, one thing that we haven't really talked about is clipping masks. And if you ever want one layer to be masked by another layer, you can just click on Alt. Let's see. You click on Alt and hold it between the two layers. And that means this layer will be masked by this layer. So this shape will be the mask for this layer. So let's click on that. And now you have this little arrow here. And I'm actually going to go back and do a tutorial on clipping masks, because I forgot to include that. I don't use them, well, I do use them some, but I don't use them a whole lot. But they are important to know. Okay, so now you can kind of see you're getting this reflection. Now if you want to fine tune that reflection, you can just create an alpha channel for it, and I'm going to make my brush a little smaller, make that black, and start just kind of taking that out so it looks a little more natural. Okay, and you can play with on the rounded rectangle, you can go in and play with the, they've also got a thing here called Inner Glow. I use that some. You can say, okay, I want it to glow a little bit on the inside, and that gives you more like a glassy look. I don't know why they make it yellow. I don't really like the yellow, but this is giving you more of like it looks like a glass wand. Or if you do, you can do it in black and see how that changes it. That gives you a slightly different look. But you know, this has become more passé. This isn't really a style that people use as much anymore. And it's unfortunate because this is what I used to use a lot. Now, people are a lot more into creating just straight lines on the top that will work for responsive design. So you can actually kind of use this. So let's say this is going to be a responsive design. I can just grab this shape now, and actually I'm going to just copy that and put that layer mask on again. And I'm just going to drag this out. They say, oh, I want a responsive design. Okay, well, let me just drag this out, and I'm going to make this full size now. There you go. And you see it still holds up. It still looks good. And if you want to, you can just add a, if you're going to put a picture here, we can say, okay, let's go File, Open. Let's just add like some random picture. I'm going to do this guy. Drag him up here, put him over here. Oh, what's going on? As you can see, I dragged them in between where my clipping mask, this image that's masked off by this layer, I dragged them in between. So now this image is masked off by this layer too. So I'm going to drag it out of there, and you'll see that it just, I'm going to drag it underneath. Now all of a sudden it's not there. It's now below that. And hopefully that makes sense. So let's make this smaller. Now let's use that again. Okay. One thing that I'll show you real quick is a style that people use a lot is to have this top bar being just overlaid on top of the image. So you can change the opacity of this. You know, let's bring it down just a little bit. And you'll get a really cool effect if you just bring the opacity down on this top bar. And you can, you know, bring your image behind it. And let's say you've just got a logo here. Let's just create a logo, 2-second logo. Okay, it's going to be heart logo. There we are. Oops, I drew that on the picture. That's not good. Heart logo. Okay. There we are. Okay. And this image doesn't really work. It's a little too big. So, oh, that's okay. Never mind. I take it back. And then you'll probably have a little box on the top. So let's do a, and I want to apologize for you guys who aren't really following this. You might want to go back and slow it down and watch it again if it's going too fast. But like I said, this is just a class. This is a lecture real quick for a specific question that I had. And I wanted to just show you a behind the scenes of how I would do this. Okay. Now, if I want to have this image, you can see that this image is too big for this section. This section, the image section or the slideshow section would probably be a little bit smaller. So what we can do is just create a box here. Let's create just a black box. It doesn't matter the color. And now what we can do is use our clipping mask to just make this image appear where this shape is. Thank you. All right, so now we have what could be, and now whenever we move this, change this size, we're going to change where the image, you know, is masked at. And we can move this picture around too. So you have a lot of flexibility. And then if you want to, one of the things we can do to make this image more, you know, if you wanted to write on top of this, you wouldn't be able to see it. So you can just do FX solid color or color overlay. And that just paints a color on top of the layer. So I'm going to paint over a, let's do a, well, let's see how that looks. Nah. Nope. No, sir. Nelly. Okay, well that looks okay. Just to, okay, we'll paint that over there. Actually, I want to do more of a blue. There we do. And you can actually take colors from here while you're working on it. Okay, so maybe that's a little better. And let's draw some big text. Let's do what everybody does. Let's do the classic style of drawing some text on here. And now I'm going to drag the text tool just so I know it's in the very middle. I'm going to drag it all the way across, and I'm going to hit welcome. Welcome to our website. I can't see it, so hopefully I wrote that right. And I'm going to make that white. Welcome to our website, and it's all in caps. I'm going to make the text a little bit more bold. Welcome. Oops. Welcome to our website. Let's make that big. Oops. Yeah, okay. Come to our website, make that a little bigger. 36, 48. All right, now what are we missing here? On top of everything, we want to have buttons, okay? And buttons are key. So as usual, I used to do buttons in the classical way, which was to, have big shiny buttons. And everybody, back in the day, everybody thought that was cool. So you would create, let's just do that real quick. Big button. Now what's going to be on our button? We'll just say, now I'm hitting shift so I don't, okay, let's say I write in here, that's fine. Let me go back through that again. Okay, I've got this is a shape layer. And as you can see on my tools, whenever I put my tool on top of that, it changes colors and it changes to a circle, okay? Square, circle, square, circle. Now if I click on that, it's going to write inside. This shape is going to be the bounding box shape of the text. So if I click on that, now it creates a shape that is, perfectly aligned with that. Okay. And for this one, it works because it's a, anyway, it's one of those things I sometimes use and sometimes don't use, but let's just say get started. Too big. I'm going to select both of those. Scroll on my mouse wheel down. Get started. Okay. Now this is way too big, obviously, for a button. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to select both of these, Shift select, and hit Control G, and name this button. Okay. Now I can work with this. You can do a very similar thing. If you want to style this like the way I was talking about, again, you can do the, just drag a circle on top of it. And I'm going to change that to white. Click on that and change it to white. And then Alt click between these two layers and bring that down to like 10. And all of a sudden you get kind of that iPhone look. It's a very easy effect to do. If you want to see that again, we have this layer selected. I'm going to draw a circle on top of it, or an oval, sorry. Once again, I did that the wrong color. Okay, white. Oops, what am I doing? Okay, sorry. New layer, circle, draw, and clipping mask. Boom, down to 10. There we are. Of course, you can make this any shape you want. You can make this a square, which is more kind of things are done nowadays. Let's just do a square here. Make that black. What did I do? Here we go. Black. There we are. And you can make this text smaller. Now, I don't like to make text smaller by transforming it. I just like to make it, I like to click it and then go down here so it stays whole numbers. So 34, 33, 32, 31, 30. Let's go down to 24. Okay, now let's change this button a little bit. There we are. Or we can just move this bounding box a little bit for the text so it's centered. There we are. Okay, that's looking good. And we want to make sure that this circle here is only going to be where this black area is. Okay, so let's okay. There we go.